are listening to the Balancing Act podcast. Here's your hosts, Jamie Wonko and Joe Vitale.
Well, apparently it always says recording on the recording, and I've always been like, and we are officially recording. So now I
see it.
it's
over
somewhere,
there.
It's over here, but you guys don't see it because
It's
it
above
doesn't
your
say
head
recording.
for me.
Yes.
Recording.
How we doing,
And
buddy?
it says how long we've been recording too.
It does. I know. I always keep track of the time.
Hello, Mr. Vitale. I am Jamie Wonko. Welcome to the Balancing Act podcast. How are the weekly doses of our how's it going week to week?
It's going pretty good week to week.
I think so too.
We hope that you are enjoying our season 2 slate of guests. We have
as
lots
much
of things.
As we are.
As
boy,
literally, literally fangirling.
Yes.
At every point on the people that we've had on.
That's right.
So we're
and today is no different.
And today is no different. That's right.
right.
So we have a guest out in the wings who's going to be coming on to talk to us about something that I actually struggle with greatly. So I'm looking forward to having her on. Hopefully she will, give me therapy. So hello.
Hi there.
Hello, Dr. Noelle Santorelli.
The doctor is in.
We try to figure out how many Italians can we fit in this space. Let's get as many as we possibly can.
Absolutely.
My kids brought me down actually a bowl of pasta, which I'm supposed to have for dinner.
That is so nice.
How Italian can it be?
I love it. And I'm down in Atlanta now, so my accent might come out the more we're talking in the podcast. I'm from Long Island originally.
Oh, nice.
I heard a little bit. The Long Island got a little drawn out there.
I'm from Long Island originally.
Where, if you don't mind me asking, where in Long Island?
North Shore.
Okay.
By Stony Brook.
Got it.
And then I usually start with there. And then if people are like, oh yeah, I know Stony Brook, then I'm like, well, do you know this place? Do you know this place? So I'm from actually a tiny little town called Miller Place.
Got it.
On the North Shore.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So welcome. We're very excited to have you.
Excited to be here for sure.
Yeah. We find most of our guests via social media and things start to pop up on our feeds. And then when some of your stuff came up on Instagram and I started scrolling through all the things that you have posted, it was like a litany of things that I need to work on. So,
and I love hearing the male perspective. Actually, I'm really excited to dig into sort of the male perspective, because when I posted initially on social media, I talk a lot about mean girl moms, right? That was like the catchy phrase. And so I think we do have to add dads into the mix.
I know we've talked a little bit about, mean girl moms, and I've put in quotes when we were responding via email, alpha bro dads.
Alpha bro dads.
Yeah, which I am not one. I'm not in the club.
Wow.
So, and it's going to be, I just think this will be a very interesting conversation. I'd love to hear about your background and
sure.
how you got to be Dr. Noelle Santorelli.
Sure. So, like I said, I'm originally from Long Island. And then I went to undergrad in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, where I lost some of my accent and I majored in psychology. Then I moved back to New York, lived in the city, worked in the city, actually at the NYU Child Study Center, working as a research assistant. And then I applied to graduate school, came down to Georgia. Got my PhD through Georgia State University, and then my predoctoral internship and postdoc fellowship was at through Emory School of Medicine.
Well, I mean, not to kind of step off here, but this episode is being taped just recently after a hurricane, and I hope everything's okay down in the parts where you are right now.
Yes.
Not to diverge from our topic, but I hope that you and your family and those that you care about are safe and sound, because we know that there's a lot of widespread devastation down in that area. So
yeah, we're pretty good right here in Atlanta. So
good.
So yeah, so I got my PhD in clinical psychology, with a focus and a concentration on trauma. Okay. And in terms of trauma, there's all different kinds of trauma, but I work more specifically on relational trauma. So that's looking at trauma that's been done to one person by another person in the capacity of their relationship. Mm-hmm. And that can include all kinds of different types of trauma, but it's really where the the sort of pain point is within other relationships.
When you say within other relationships, do you mean the effect that has on relationships between other people?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Sort of how you carry that into other relationships.
Okay.
And so I started doing relational trauma, also developmental trauma. So developmental trauma would be, growing up with childhood abuse, any kind of childhood abuse. That's sort of developmental. And then I started to notice, wow, there's lots of relationship struggles, even in healthy relationships, once someone's been in an unhealthy relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And so that sort of merged then into my very strong interest always in relationships and relational dynamics. And there came the relational aggression. I started to see in my private practice, the older I got, the more older women, or like not teenage women, that they were talking about these relational situations that included lots of aggression, these relational aggression scenarios, that for some of these women then actually leads to relational trauma that we are then working on in psychotherapy.
I have so many questions.
And feel free to stop me because I'm a talker and I can just talk. So stop me at any point and I can explain.
Wow. Okay.
We're gonna let you start. I'm getting my charger because we're gonna be here a while. Okay.
So to start for me, so I know you guys were talking about the alpha bros or the mean girl moms or things like that. But the one thing that really just stood out for me with what you just said was the issues that people have with healthy relationships. So the idea that you can still have a very healthy relationship, but you're bringing some of your, some of that baggage of, things that have happened to you. So let's say that, let's say that you're dealing with a healthy relationship and, the couple is bringing to you, some things that maybe, I guess, what one spouse would have learned from their parents.
Sure.
And then they're bringing that to their relationship. What are some of the things that you might say or do to try to stop that? And is that possible?
It's definitely possible. So it's definitely possible. I think, it very much, the thing with psychology is it's so nuanced. And so every situation is going to be really specific. But for example, if we've got, if I'm working with a couple, and I don't do a ton of couples work, but I'll bring in the other person for collateral to give some information about what's going on. But let's say you've got a client who felt neglected growing up by their parents, right? Yeah. So some relational trauma there, some developmental trauma there. They were neglected and they never felt like they were heard. They were maybe parentified and had to do all things themselves. They're now married and they have a husband who has, a very demanding job and works a lot of hours. And this, let's just use the mom, is asking for more help or assistance in the child care responsibilities. And the husband says, yeah. And he genuinely wants to help, but his job is really demanding. The mom can feel that as like a trauma response because she feels as if she's being ignored, neglected, and she's having to run the ship like she used to historically. So that's an example of how an old pattern may revisit in what's really a healthy relationship.
Right. Okay.
When we get, and I'm not sure if your listeners know what relational aggression even is.
You are more than welcome to enlighten us.
Yes. Especially how it relates to, and I think specifically we have a lot of, we talk a lot about parenting, but we really talk obviously a lot about our profession. Both of us are still active classroom day-to-day teachers and see at least 100 kids a day, every single day, right? So what we talk a lot about is like our changing profession in the last 25 years from like a person who's going into their job teaching to a person who is now also doing so many things like identifying trauma, dealing with emotions, aggression, different learning disabilities, who has ADD, who has a custody issue. There's so many things. And so anything that we can relate to that or bring to our core group is welcome.
And educators, schools, teachers, even administrators within, schools, it is so imperative that they know what relational aggression is. Like that word relational aggression, they should be like, got it, in my opinion, right? That should just be like an instant, I know what that is. So what that is basically is just, instead of physical aggression, which was historically really male-based, right? Or sort of culturally, boys are asked to be more physical. They can display their anger. They get in a fight, they're going to punch you in the face, right? Historically, women were taught to behave differently culturally. And in society, you're supposed to be polite and not really bothered. You can be sad, but not really mad, right? There's all these sort of sociocultural norms that women are expected to behave by. So one thing that women typically, and again, I think it's changing in our generations now, women use relationships to do their dirty work. So instead of punching someone in the face, a woman or a young girl is going to use a relationship to do damage. And that's where you get things like gossip, backstabbing, exclusion, cyberbullying,
which are all things that exist in a middle school.
A middle school is rampant with it. Yes.
Not just the middle school, also in most secondary schools.
100%.
Or on the sidelines at a soccer game.
Or on the sidelines at a soccer game. There's that too.
But it's a hotbed for this type of dynamic. So another word for relational aggression is covert bullying. Right? So we've got overt bullying. That's I'm going to shove you in your locker. Well, that's not happening anymore. I mean, people aren't putting people in lockers that I know of. But people sure as hell are going to start group chats and leave Johnny out because they didn't like how Johnny looked at them at lunch today.
Yep.
Yes.
Right? So that's covert bullying, relational aggression.
Okay.
Just to define like what that is. And if it gets bad enough, right, then you can have trauma from those experiences.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, you can see me kind of staring at the ceiling to try and figure out.
Covert bullying, right? So same thing, covert bullying, relational aggression, same thing. It's the gossip, excluding, backstabbing, all, you name it, right? All those things that you see in middle school, high school. Now we're starting to see it in first grade, second grade. What's particularly tricky about it is it leaves no visible wounds. So if I, stuff you in the locker, if I punch you in the face, somebody's going to know somewhere that something happened. But it is so covert that it makes the person it's happening to, the victim, feel like they're going crazy, or they're like, am I overreacting? Is this really happening? So they start to second guess their own judgment and second guess themselves. And when they go to someone for help, no one can help them, or they don't feel like they can help them because you can't pin it on something. There's no real evidence. And so it can be very crazy making for the victims going through it.
I'm thinking of a situation that just happened with a young man in one of my classes where he came in and he was ticked off. And I was like, what's going on? Why are you in such a bad mood? He's like, this one was talking about me and that one was talking about me. And these girls, I was walking down the hallway. I'm like, and so the advice that I gave him was, this is going to happen often.
Yeah.
It's going to continue to happen.
Yeah.
And the better your toolbox is to be able to ignore it and know that the things that they're saying about you are not true, the better it is for you to be able to get past what they're saying and not react in some kind of negative way.
Absolutely.
I'm wondering if that was the right advice, just from what we're talking about, because I don't have the necessary toolbox to teach these kids how to deal with one another, but we definitely try on a regular basis to teach them about the interpersonal relationships in in their classes in the hallway, stuff like that.
I think when you're a victim or you're the one who's being excluded, or you're the one that people are talking about, or you're the one who, people purposely make it so there's no spot on the bench in the cafeteria, right? When you're that person, one of the best things you can do is branch out and find other groups of people where you feel connected. So I always recommend for my teenage middle school clients or the parents of those clients, make sure you're invested in other groups, right? Don't put all your eggs in one basket. So when something like that happens, ignoring, as hard as that is to do, but not just ignoring and then isolating, ignoring because there's another group or there's another community or there's another place where you can fit in and be accepted, right? I think we need to teach not so much the people who it's happening to how to deal with it. They also need to know how to deal with it, and that what they're feeling isn't crazy, that what they're experiencing isn't nonsense, that it's really happening, or it may really be happening. But I really think we have to talk bigger picture to kids in general about these behaviors that are very normalized in middle school, high school, and now even in adulthood. They're not actually normal. Well, they are normal, but they're not acceptable. So lots of times kids don't even know. They're like, oh yeah, I guess that is gossip. I guess that would suck. Or they don't even know that what they're doing has a name. And that's been like the overwhelming response I've gotten from my social media account is, oh my God, there's a name for this. This is what that is. And so sometimes naming it can just help tame it. Right. So I think educating kids about these are dangerous behaviors to engage in. Just because they're not physical doesn't mean they're not harmful or painful. And then you always need an upstander. So one of my hills to die on is who's going to be the upstander.
I think that's a hard position for a lot of kids to be in. It really is, because it immediately makes them a target.
It usually has to be someone with pretty significant social capital.
Yeah. How you get them to that point is,
as far as, when you talked and introduced the concept of mean girl moms, and I'm curious as to what this looks like as an adult. Now we talked about what it looks like in the teenager space.
Yep.
But what are some examples of relational aggression in the adult interaction space?
Yeah. So
and we're not, and by the way, and I apologize, I interrupted you.
Go ahead.
But we're not and we're not talking about, when we say relational, we're not talking about necessarily couples therapy. And that's, I want to make sure that our listeners know that this is and that's one of the reasons that I thought it was important to have this conversation is that this is something that a lot of adults deal with. That's almost like the spotted elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about.
No one wants to talk about it.
Yeah.
It's middle school happening in carpool, in sports fields, at gymnastics studios, birthday parties. It is the same exact behaviors, but happening among the mothers of the children. So, and I think it's a relatively newer development. I'm not sure that and that's part of what I'm hoping to research, but that
was actually going to be my next question. Is there is there a pinpoint as to
that's
this
what
began here? Yeah.
Right. I'm trying to figure out, there's something about COVID, but it did exist pre-COVID. But I don't think this went on in the 70s as bad, in the 80s as bad. Of course, now the cell phone makes it worse. Social media makes it worse, right? People love posting what they're doing, and they love tagging everyone who was there and not tagging everyone who was not there, right?
Yeah.
And so you instantly know the minute you're left out. Some ways that this has that people have told me this happens is even little things like you go to you bring your kid to soccer and it's a new sports team. Well, all the moms have known each other, let's say, since pre-K, and you're in second grade. Not one parent will come up and say, "Hi, I'm Susie. These are my 7 friends." They'll notice a mom sitting alone and not even make a gesture to say, "Come sit," or "come into the group." So that's click and exclusivity.
I try to not be that person. I really do. I try to be the person that goes up and like, "Hi, how are you?" You know, like, "Oh, it's nice to meet you," or you know, "Oh, your child is who now?" And you know, because it's always new kids, new teams. Who are you? And you have these conversations. And at least try to be, you know, not introduce it. Yeah, it just try to be exactly inclusive.
Inclusive, right? It's just focusing more on inclusivity rather than exclusivity. You know, from some of my own experiences, there was a mom who planned a birthday party for her son. This was, I think I had a kid in 3rd grade at the time. And she decided that she wanted the birthday party. This is a private school. I'm not saying it can't happen in public schools, but this was a private school. She decided to hire a party bus to pick up the kids after school in carpool. So a party bus ran through carpool and only took, let's say, 10 of the children on the party bus. After school, there were kids in carpool crying. And I'm not saying everyone needs to be included. That's not the point. Yeah. But my point is, we don't need to advertise and purposefully make people feel excluded.
I'm also like, the first thing I thought of when you said that was like, how the hell did the school react? Like, I'm thinking about like the principal, the teachers, to be like, what are we doing? Like,
this is a no.
I used to kind of scoff at like when they were in when my kids were in elementary school, and I started, or maybe it was like before they were in elementary school, and I started hearing like, you know, if you're gonna have a birthday party, you have to invite everybody in the class. And I'm like, it's not like I thought that was a bad idea. I was like, well, okay. I'm like, yeah, but there are times where like maybe you don't get along with someone.
Sure.
And maybe you don't want them to be at your birthday party. Yeah. Okay. However, in order to include everyone gets invited. So then no one feels that they are left out.
Right.
Right. Right. So, I mean, that can have a traumatic effect on kids at a very young age, where they then hold grudges for long periods of time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the kids are, you know, at the lunch table talking about who's going home on the party bus today.
Yeah.
And so to me, right, that's not a child's decision. That is coming straight from the moms or the dads, right? That is an adult decision. And there's someone in place administratively who thought, okay, let's roll with this. Not understanding that this is a form of aggression that can have actually detrimental effects on development and childhood. And again, it's coming from the moms, because no kid is booking a party bus. And this is just one example, right?
Right. Yeah. I have 3 kids, and I would say that, so my oldest is 16, and then I have twins that are 12. And I noticed a remarkable difference in the 3rd grade. It was, you know, there was a lot of like kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade. It was like, and all my friends and all my friends and all the kids and all my friends. And then something twisted in 3rd grade, like so distinctly with my son, that I remember being like, oh, and I wasn't the only, you know, it was like one of those conversations of like, oh, is this like a 3rd grade? This has happened. So when you said all the way to 1st grade, I'm like, oh, that's so sad, because, you know, it was hard enough in 3rd grade. And sure enough, same thing, my girls, 3rd grade, same thing came along, noticed this very, you know, oh, now we're going here, like, oh, we're on this team. Oh, we're over here. And it was like where everyone sort of would go after school and play. It was very much like, where, you know, these definitions of like who we are. I do think like our generation as parents we're doing a terrible job, I think, of like sort of having to like, oh, you are this. And it's greater society of, if you don't play soccer when you're 4, you're out. If you're not a gymnast by 5, you're done. Right. So, and it's like, whatever happened to just like trying it out. Sometimes at night, like I'll like last night I was driving back from Target, and there was all these adult men playing soccer. for fun. And I was like, what's going to happen in like 25 years? Because there's no like, oh, for fun. Like when I was a kid, my dad played tennis with his friends for fun, right? It's like, well, he wasn't a tennis player, but now it's like, if you're not a pro, you're out. So I feel like that creates a divide. And then there's also, I think, a divide between working moms and non-working moms.
Oh my goodness, yes.
And right. And it's like this and then there's also a lot of resentment. And I'll say this like personally. So my kids, I went back to work when they were 4 months old and 5 months old, respectively. Right. So I get it. Like being an in it working mom, I did not have someone come to my house to babysit my children. My parents, my grandparents on both sides did not, they would help if someone got sick or something, but I hauled it every day to a sitter. And, and sometimes I do look back and I'm like, how you did it. I mean, there were nights where like it would be 7 o'clock at night and I would say like, you did it, you made it. Right. So it's like, I get it. And then as they got a little bit older, I feel personally a very strong, compelling pull, and I always have, to community service. So it's just something that I always try to do. I've done it since I was in high school. It's just a thing for me. So, okay, how do you help your kids and how do you be an involved parent? I'm going to join the PTO. Within 5 minutes, it was like, and now you're the president. Okay.
Right. We're voluntold.
Okay.
Yeah, I do not want this to sound arrogant towards Jamie and myself, but we are those people. My friend used a term the other day, and now I can't remember what it was, but we are we're good at what we do. And when you are, you get additional responsibility. She's in charge of the PTA. I was, helping to run a soccer organization for a little while. It just winds up happening that way.
Yeah. But what was happening to me after so many years was, and I knew I'm very in tune. I have a very high EQ, not IQ, but EQ. And you feel that. So I think that the higher like emotional awareness you have, the more in tune you are to, and I say this to the kids at school, like, I'm a girl. Like, I know I look like an old lady, but deep down, I'm a girl. I went to school with girls. I know when you're whispering. I know what you're doing.
You feel it.
You feel it. I know it's like I can sense it coming. And so there was also this idea of like, oh, you think you're better than me because you work and you have 3 kids and you want to be the star. And it's like, no, I want to contribute and help. And if you're saying that and you're doing that to make yourself feel better about what you're not doing. And like, I really don't care. But after years, and when I tell you years, I stepped, it was like, I'm done. I graduated. I'm going to be one of those people that's like, let me know what I can do.
Right.
Let me know if you need something. I want to bring 1 bag of candy, right? Like
Venmo dad. I want to be Venmo dad. I want to Venmo.
Right?
Or like, you're always the first one to sign up for paper plates and napkins. That's me.
Yes, the paper goods person. But I did recently, I kind of like dipped back in a little bit because my son is like super involved in marching band, and something just happened recently with like, oh, I'm going to organize pizza, and I can organize pizza. And someone said, like in front of 40 people, that I didn't order enough pizza, and it wasn't like you didn't order, it was very pointed, right? And, okay. So instead of saying, we feel this happened, or, let me take over for you or whatever, they just did it. And the pizza pole was no longer mine.
Oh, they took it over.
They just took it over.
Without asking you, saying, hey.
Yeah. And my stance was, you're in high school. If I ask you if you want pizza on Wednesday, you should be able to know by Friday, and you have to answer yes or no.
Right.
So I'm not running for 4 extra pizzas because you're 16 or 17 years old and you couldn't click yes or no.
Right.
And I want to
can't make hard, those hard, but so it's like, oh, don't worry, we have it. And it's like,
I want to make two comments about this, and kind of on Jamie's behalf. Number one is like, I'd love to maybe build the bridge, Noelle, the bridge from the other side. Like, why would those parents react that way? That's one thing. But the other is like, those parents might not know like I'm not how I'm going to say it this way, how busy Jamie is, but it's not because like we're all busy, but like,
Right.
she's going down to help her mom who has health issues at various points throughout, the weekends, and she's missing this event because she's going to go help and be there for her dad. It's like they don't know that, but yet she's still not being Venmo mom or Venmo dad. She's still trying to be involved, trying to be a part of the conversation, trying to help wherever she can. And like, it's just kind of shitty to like, does that pull us off? Does that pull us off of YouTube? There's curse words. It's just, I can try beeping it out.
Yeah.
That's very that's frustrating to me to hear that somebody just came in and took it away. Like,
well, I got a whole lot of deep dive theories on this.
Tell me everything.
I don't want to make it too like, convoluted. But I think what's happening is our parents, not our parents, the parents we have to hang out with, right? As parents, I think we're very much in a scarcity mentality, right? So if you even think back to like the 2019 college admissions bribing scandals, right? Like what these famous people were paying and doing to get their kids a spot. Somehow we found ourselves culturally, I think, in this scarcity mentality when it comes to our kids. And the truth is, this is one of the first generations, right, where our kids are not going to out-earn us, most likely. And so there's this real scarcity mentality and competitiveness where everything is sort of among the parents becoming a zero-sum game. So if your kid gets it, I'm not happy for you. That automatically means mine does not. And so the claws are going to come out, and I'm going to do it better than you because I want what's best for my kid, because my kid needs to have what's best in order to do better and get the thing. And there's not enough. And that reflects on my parenting. So without going too far into this, I think there's a scarcity mentality that is really infiltrating our culture as parents. And it's making us mean, basically, and self-focused.
Yeah.
Right? Like my win, your win is my loss. I don't see it as your win. I see it as a threat.
I say all the time in class, like it's happening, and I see it. I have 8th grade, and I'll say, that quote you used, it was unbelievable. Like that paragraph you wrote, amazing. And I see like the other, and they love to look at each other and like, and I always say like, from the words of the great Tina Fey, just because I tell you that you're beautiful does not mean I'm saying everyone else is ugly.
You froze just when you said that there. Could you say that again? From the great Tina Fey, and then you froze.
Yes.
Sorry.
The great Tina Fey, just because I tell someone they're beautiful does not mean I'm saying that everyone else is ugly.
Got it.
Exactly. Right. Yep.
But that's the assumption all the time. Oh, she hated what I did because she didn't. And it's like that
all the time.
All the time.
All the time with every child. And, the whole idea of the scarcity mentality is
brilliant.
My kids are involved in high school sports. They are not world beating, soon to be Division I athletes. They are doing it because they enjoy it. They have fun doing it. I am critical to a fault of the way certain things get handled because they directly affect my children.
Sure.
So it causes me to be defensive and withdrawn in a lot of ways where I don't like that about myself because that's not the kind of person that I like. I am not like, I am literally putting myself out on the internet every week doing a podcast talking about this stuff. So I am not a withdrawn, not willing to express myself kind of person, but I just feel that like things that are sometimes said in a parent meeting can be held against you, mentioned to another group of parents or a coach, and then it's held against the child.
Sure.
Which I think has directly happened for the reason of other people's advancement.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
And that's just the way it is. And it through some recent situations, which and Jamie, I think Jamie actually said it to me when we talked about it. Like my daughter probably handled them better than I did.
Right.
She has a great head on her shoulders, and I've tried to stop saying to her, I'm proud of her, and say, you must be very proud of yourself, or you should be so proud of yourself because of the choices and the way that she handles things and the fact that she does not get involved in the bullshit. That's
awesome.
2 curses. I don't know if that really
Mr.
kicks us off YouTube.
Vitale.
I know.
This is a heated topic. I mean, you can't really
the
get
BS.
through it without,
So
You
true.
can't get 3 Italians on a podcast and
No.
expect there not to be
I mean,
cursing.
2 Noelles and a Joseph. Give me a break.
exactly.
I know. Wait, and your middle name is Noelle, so we got a lot going on
That's
here.
what
There's
I
a lot.
mean.
I know.
Yes,
my
it's
middle name.
amazing. That's amazing. And
Yes.
these when your kids get involved, right? Like our emotions get high. And that's just the nature of what's happening, right? Like the kids' emotions are getting high, the parents' emotions are getting high, teachers' emotions are getting high. I've seen teachers influenced by parents to have a negative perception of certain children. Teachers,
Which is
which
horrible.
are human, but if you've got alpha mom coming in and she's class mom and she's complaining and she's saying little Johnny's a real jerk, eventually the teacher's going to start, whether it's subconscious or conscious, she's going to start seeing Johnny in that way.
Yeah.
Then the kids start to pick up that teacher's always on Johnny.
Yeah.
And then the kids start to be mean to Johnny. So it's like a domino effect that just trickles down.
Yeah. And at the same time, it's like that idea of breaking the cycle, right? So
Yes.
when my daughter's moved from one team to another and then doesn't feel included or whatever the reason may be, she goes down to a different or goes to a different team and then immediately is like trying to talk with, because she's a junior, she's trying to talk with the freshman players, make sure that they know what to do, like immediately that day, where she's in tears and crying, but still trying to like be an active participant with the other people that are there and show like some leadership. And in that moment, she did not have to do that but she felt like that's what she should have been doing.
Yeah.
So, and I admire that. I think that's a
was
very,
my character.
so yeah. And there's a lot, there's hope is basically what I'm getting to. Like when people are treated a certain way, like maybe they feel, like, you know what, I just don't want to be made to feel that way in my experience. So I'm going to make sure it doesn't happen to anyone else.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
And teachers, I'm going to say it, teachers are notorious for this.
They are. That's what all my followers, I mean.
It's so bad. It's so
you,
bad.
You told me a story, Jane, the other day about like when you were at the same school as your
so
sister?
when I got hired, I ended up teaching at the same school as my older sister.
Shout out Janine.
Hey Janine, hey girl. She abandoned us for South Carolina, but so she's near you.
Oh, nice.
She just moved a couple months ago. So, she's 4 years older than I am. And it just so happened in the school district of 25 schools, I get a job at the same school. And many of the teachers who she had been working with for 4 years were like, we're not going to be friends with Janine's sister just because it's Janine's sister. It's like, we're adults. Like, and let me tell you something. I was captain of the cheerleading squad in high school. I was president of my sorority in college. Like, I can roll with the best girl groups that there are. I have never wanted to directly, and I'm sure that I have, and I would never have wanted to do that intentionally, leave people out.
Right.
And when I moved from my first school to my second school, I was placed in a classroom and someone was removed from that classroom unbeknownst to me. And I was given the classroom and the entire hallway. It like I shuddered to walk down the hallway because no one would even say good morning to me. And it took like 6 months for me to learn that it was because I took his classroom. I'm 23 years old. I didn't take anybody's class. I had no idea. And then I ended up being in that building for like over 20 years. And one of the things that we did was complete and total 100% inclusiveness.
Right.
For everyone, all the time. And there are people who, and we talk about it all the
Mhm.
time of like how great it's. You can't like everyone. And
Yes.
it wasn't like I wanted to spend every minute with all of these people every weekend or whatever. But especially in the workplace,
Yeah.
or if you're an adult parent, there is no reason that you can't learn people's names, say hello to them, see
Totally.
how they're doing, learn a little bit about their lives, their likes, their dislikes.
Yeah.
What,
Right. I
you
mean, it
know?
crosses over at some point to basic etiquette,
Yes.
right? At some point, I've had some people on Instagram that are, etiquette specialists reach
Uh-huh.
out and say, this is so directly linked. Like etiquette over time has like gone downhill, right? But part of this is manners, right? Like when you're at a team and you see new parents, you say, "Hi, my name is, what is your name?" I mean, this is like basic social 101, and we've somehow lost it. So I think all of this goes together, and that's a great example of adult relational aggression.
Yeah.
A group of adults not speaking to you and not having the interpersonal effectiveness skills to come up to you and say, "Hey, did you take that classroom?" Or, "Hey, here's what we heard. Can we
Right.
check this out?" Right? We have
Or
to teach people to communicate.
hey, there were some kids who maybe didn't get pizza at the band thing.
Right.
Do you need a little bit of help to do this? Like, you know what
Exactly.
I mean? Like, maybe that could have been approached a little bit different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, honestly,
Common
Jamie, and let
courtesy.
me let me also state, Jamie, I
Yeah.
completely 100% take your side. Like, you should know by Friday. And by the way, you're not going to starve. There's a snack stand. Then you don't get pizza, and you go eat at the snack stand. So
Right.
you'll be fine. Um, but like, there
But
are
I'm not
ways
gonna
to
do it
approach this.
anymore, so I don't know what that says about me. Because 'cause
No,
I'm like, "I'm
no,
good. I'm
Right.
good."
I don't think it.
"You're good, I'm good."
No, I don't think it says. I don't think it says anything about you.
Right.
Not as not the relationship expert on this podcast. Um, I because I feel the exact same way. When I was like asked to do fundraising, and I says it's like, nope, I'll do XYZ. It's like, no, I'll do the bare minimum of things because I am not going to put forth the extra effort to
Yeah.
not like if because for a variety of reasons I won't get into, but like I'll do the bare minimum. I'll do the bare minimum, and that'll get me by, and I'll be fine. Which
Yeah.
I don't. Again, that's not me, but that's what I chose to do in this situation for my own sanity.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I wanna say, because you kinda said before, I'm not, I don't like how it went. I don't like how it played out. No one was, like, rude about it. There was just no
yeah,
communication. And I do have to understand, like, some people just are terrible communicators. Maybe they thought like it was too much for me. And instead of saying like, oh, maybe this is like, maybe you're stretched too thin, or just even
Mhm.
saying anything about it, that's
Mhm.
fine. But what I will say is, and we've talked a lot about on the podcast about dealing with, we're like the sandwich generation.
Yes.
So yeah, so Joe and I both have like plenty of experiences with parents who are nearing 80.
Yeah.
And I guess historically,
Mhm.
you would have been much older by now, right? So our parents had us older, than they're
Yeah.
older, and we're older, and we still have little kids, and we're caring for our older parents. So it's right, that's where we get the
Yeah.
term from.
Yeah.
But I fully do not expect anyone
Mhm.
to understand what my life is like, and I do not expect anyone to think that they understand, or I don't expect them to go out of their way. I don't expect them to ask. A lot of times I just don't even, when they say like, "Hey, how's your mom?" Fine. Like I'm not getting into it. I did that a couple of times and people cannot receive it.
They get uncomfortable, or
So uncomfortable.
like if you ask
Um,
for help, or if you just say, "Oh, she's not doing great,"
Oh,
or
I won't ask for help. My mom has been ill, like bedridden for 2 years.
okay.
And so we provide like 24-hour round the clock care. So I go every weekend to help to take care of her, and It's diapering, it's bathing, it's feeding. She has no use of her hand, the whole thing, right? So I've said that to people and they're like, so we all have so many things, right? We do?
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. I mean, I'm sorry. I just bursted out in uproarious laughter.
It's really true, but it is true. So
if you did not watch this on YouTube, please go to the 44-minute mark and watch Jamie's reaction when she does that, because it absolutely cracked me up. I'm sorry, and I appreciate the fact that you can tell it with humor.
So I really do. It's taken me, and I have a therapist. I have someone that I've been speaking to for years. And so I get hiccups of
course,
really for real. But then there's also that understanding and idea of, everyone really, and this is something I say to my girls all the time, like, you are not the main character in other people's story.
Right?
Yep.
Right.
And I have to tell myself that because I can't expect anyone to understand, like the depths of, or like the emotional, like, of those things. But I did go through a period of time with I'm going to say relational aggression.
Ooh, good job.
Thank you. With some other women, with dealing with a very, very low point in time where I actually said, like, my mom is dying and I don't know what to do. I can't do this. And they were like, oh my gosh, let me know if you need something.
It's
like,
yeah. So that's it's the self-absorbed nature of our culture now.
Woof. I mean, my goodness. So I think, I have had to, like, over the last couple of years of, like, just protect that because people are not going to. So I can appreciate, like, you're not gonna. I have a way that I want someone to react, and it's not gonna happen. So it's easier just to, like, glaze over it, because I did share with people, and their reactions, and I just think it says more about them than anything else.
Yes.
But when we look at, like, their own experiences, I do try to say to myself, I don't know.
Right.
Maybe they do have, like, so many. It's like kids know kids, right?
Right.
People, like, that have kids want to, like, oh, I'm so much. And it's like people that don't have kids are just as busy.
Right.
Their lives are just as full. They have just as much going on. We cannot,
that comparison.
Right. But it's hard. It's real. I mean, that'll keep you in business forever, doctor.
Oh,
yeah. And I think what we need to do is we need to get a party bus together that could pick up the three of us.
Absolutely.
And then we could
ride around.
We'll drive around Long Island and hit some of the shore bars. Noelle, I want to thank you for joining us today.
Sure, this is great
on our episode. And as always,
we
Noelle,
appreciate you.
We appreciate you, and Jamie, I appreciate you. This is our thing. This is what we do.
I appreciate you.
Okay.
So as educators, if you can just get the word out that, like, there is a name for this behavior, and if we can teach kids earlier on what it is, it used to just be a normal rite of passage, right? Like. But it's getting really, really pervasive, and it's going much further past the traditional developmental level where it's appropriate, right? It's just kind of going unchecked. And so if you see it, if you can, name it or identify it. There was one woman recently with, like, a viral Instagram. She's a teacher, and she said, it's if you can't change that thing about yourself in 30 seconds.
I just talked about that with my students the other day. Don't mention it. Yeah.
Then shut up
mention
about it.
Yeah. I said that to a bunch of kids, and some of them actually, like, looked and they were like, and she was like an elementary school teacher.
Yeah.
And it was like this really, she's like, if someone has a piece of fuzz on their shirt, you can tell them to get it off, but, like, people can't change their hair color or their weight or their eye color. And I said that to a group of students, like, if they can't change it in 30 seconds, shut up about it.
Yeah.
There's not, like, if I say to you, oh, your fly's open, and kids laugh, I'm like, then that's something they can fix.
Right. And I think the same rule applies if don't talk about it behind their backs in other social groups, right? If it's something they can change. Right?
Yeah.
Well, thank you
Noelle, thank you again for joining us, and we listeners, we will see you all the next time on the Balancing Act podcast.
Balancing Act podcast will now be available weekly. Check out Apple Podcasts or Spotify and give us a follow. We appreciate you.